Hi Booktube! I'm here today with the personal rules for reading tag, and this was created by MJ from Reading This Life, and I saw this video on multiple people's channels, but I liked the questions best from Jim's books, reading and stuff. So I'm gonna say that I watched his video and got the inspiration from that, because you add your own questions onto this, and I liked the questions from his video better than the other videos I watched. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna begin with the original questions. Do you strive to read every day? If yes, do you do anything different or special to make time within your day? If no, why not? I do strive to read every day. I tend to get into bed at like 9, even though I'm not planning to fall asleep until like 11 or 12, so I can read. Yeah, and just things tend to quiet down at that time. Anyways, and I do have an alarm set on my phone, set for 7 p.m. to remind me to wrap things up and start reading. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes, you know, I'm just like, screw it, I want to watch, you know, TV or something. And I think it's important to, you know, do things other than that, not be so rigid. But yeah, so that's what I do. Also, when I work the morning shifts at my work, I have about an hour in the morning where there's not a whole lot going on. So I try to bring a book then to read, you know, maybe 20-30 pages while things go on. And then I do a 16-hour overnight during the week as well. And like, there's not a whole lot going on at night. And there's not a lot of like active work, if that makes sense. Not always. I work in a residential home. So sometimes there's stuff to do at night and people are up and, you know, want to chat and stuff like that. And sometimes everyone's in bed at 10 and, you know, have nothing to do. Because, you know, can't really do all the cleaning and stuff while people are sleeping. So I read during that time as well. So yeah, I do strive to read every day. Number 2, do you always stay within your favorite genres, or do you experiment with reading different genres and subgenres? I don't. I don't know how people can do that. Like, I know there's like a lot of channels that are specifically based for like science fiction or fantasy or maybe both, and I can't do it. I need variety. I need, you know, to scratch certain niches, and sometimes sticking within one genre just doesn't do it. Like, so right now I'm reading a nonfiction about the economic situations in India. I'm reading a French classic. It's not in French, it's in English. I'm not that talented. I'm reading a fantasy. I'm reading a Discworld novel, which counts as fantasy, but it's a different kind of fantasy. What else am I reading? I'm looking at my stack, but it's faced backwards. Oh, I'm reading like a Russian, I guess a modern classic. So like I like to spread out. I think there's a few genres that I don't really touch. Mostly like romance, but that's just because I have zero interest in the topic. So yeah, I do really like to, I guess, experiment. I like to dip my feet into different pools there. Next question, do you DNF? If yes, what was the last book you DNF'd and the reasons why? If your answer is no, then what drives you to finish the book? I do DNF. I DNF like crazy. And it's not always like a solid DNF, this book sucks, I'm not going to finish, I'm not going to read it, I'm going to throw it in the garbage kind of book. It could just be like, this isn't the right book for this moment, even though I'm halfway through it. It could be, you know, a book I sit down and completely forget about, which maybe doesn't say good things about the book, but, you know, I do eventually plan to get back to it. Yeah, the last book I DNF'd was, Brave New World Revisited by Huxley. Brave New World is one of my all-time favorite books. I love that book, but I've never read Brave New World Revisited, which is where he goes and he looks at the themes in the book, like a decade or two later, and like talks more about them and, you know, how important they are. And yeah, there's nothing like finding out your favorite author is a eugenicist. Yeah, that was severely disappointing, and I'm just like, wait, like this part of Brave New World you actually agree with? Like, what? What? I thought this was supposed to be like, this is not a good thing. But instead he's like, yeah, let's just like only let certain people procreate. Yeah. No. DNF that one, because I was like, I don't want to be further disappointed and have my favorite book colored in such a light. I'll continue reading it with my own personal opinion about what's supposed to be said. Okay, yeah. Number 4, do you like to read challenging books? If yes, what draws you to them? If not, why do you avoid them? I love reading challenging books. I don't do it a lot because they are challenging, but I do love doing it. That's actually one thing that will draw me to a book. If someone says like, this book is impossible to read, I'm like, oh, is it? Really? Is it? Let me try. I think that started with reading Ulysses, and it wasn't presented as such an impossible book because I was doing it in class. So I was like, oh, it's something I have to read for class. And like, it was challenging. Like I had to listen to an audiobook for certain parts while reading along because it was all in dialogue, in dialect, that's the word. And so I was like, well, if I listen to it, I'll probably be able to process it better. And that's one of my tricks. The book's written in dialect, to listen to it as you're reading it to try and make more sense of it. And so from just there, I was just like, bring it, give me more, give me more. Because I love diving into a book and really getting my hands into it. And I love little like random bits of information and seeing an author's passion come through on the page. You know, one of my favorite books and one of the books that I've dived the most into is House of Leaves, which people say is like really challenging. And it's the challenge that draws me to it. Okay, then we have, I just copied and pasted this, so I'm not entirely sure who all these people are, but I have their first names. That annoys me so much. Sorry, this could be a little side ramble. It annoys me so much when booktubers mention booktubers, but they only reference them by like their actual name instead of like their channel name. Because I'm like, who's Greg? I don't know who Greg is. Sorry, like, why isn't his channel name there? Do I just search Greg on YouTube? Is he gonna come up? I don't know. So this is a great question. Hi Greg, I don't know who you are, but you know, if it's your channel, please let me know down below so I can actually check out your booktube channel. Anyways, Greg's question. Do you read books that have been banned by local authorities? Yeah, sure, why not? Like, you know, I've never gone out of my way to do that. There were books that were assigned to us in school that I found out later had been banned. And that's interesting because I went to a Catholic school too, which, you know, I think would hop on the banned book stuff, but we were quite a liberal Catholic school, in some senses. In a lot of senses, actually. Yeah, so like it's not like, ooh, this book's been banned, I gotta find out why. It's more just like, yeah, I've read 1984. It was assigned to me in grade 12. Like, yeah. So it's like, I don't think books should be banned, obviously, but yeah, I haven't gone out of way that just certain books I have read had to be banned for some reason or other. CriminOlly. See, that I think is a channel name unless your parents named you CriminOlly. But I'm assuming your name's probably Ollie or Oliver. Assumptions. That question. Do you read books by authors whose views you disagree with? Well, I just talked about Aldous Huxley, but that was before I knew I disagreed with his views. Yes and no. I find that if an author is, I guess it's more relevant now because of social media and all that stuff, that authors are able to get out their views instead of like just having them privately. So like if someone is very right-wing, chances are I probably won't pick up their book. The fiction stuff, maybe, but it's more of an accident, if that makes sense. Let me explain this in like different ways. So like nonfiction by right-wing author, I won't pick up. I'm just gonna say that. I get enough of their opinions on the internet that I'm not gonna go and seek them out otherwise. But an author that I have picked up and reluctant to pick up again is Margaret Atwood. But the reason I don't want to pick up her books, there's a lot politically that I disagree with her, but she did not want her books categorized as science fiction, and she has a very disparaging view of science fiction. But like The Handmaid's Tale and the Mad Adam trilogy, which are I read the Mad Adam trilogy, and The Handmaid's Tale I just kind of know about, are science fiction. And her disdain for that genre, I think, you know, it affects her writing. if that makes sense. Like, you're showing that you don't know the own genre that you're writing in. And I think that's important to do, to branch out and read other things. I'm going on a big rant here. But yeah, if I know their views and I disagree with their views, I won't pick up the books. But then, like, Orson Scott Card, like, I absolutely abhor the man, but Ender's Game is really good. So, like, and there was a Robert Heinlein book, oh my god, the one that was made into the movies, the bugs. Oh my god, I can't believe the title's totally escaping my mind. I totally hated that book and disagreed with everything he said in it, but some of his other books I've enjoyed. So yeah, I guess it depends. That's my answer. Okay, question 7. Steve Donoghue. And I know his channel is the Steve Donoghue, so. Anyways, do you clear your mind of preconceptions and biases before you start a new book, or do you go in with axes to grind? I think it's impossible to clear your mind of preconceptions. I've had that problem with a book that I recently read called The Employees, where I was expecting an anti-work book and it turned out to be something completely different, and it did ruin my experience of the book because I was expecting something and didn't get it, but that was my own mistake, my own assumptions there. So I don't know if I go in with axes to grind. Like, I go in to be educated in nonfiction books, and I don't read things from right-wing people, so I don't think I'd, you know, if I was going to read like a book that was like pro Donald Trump, I'd go in there with that mindset, like this is not going to be true, this is a bunch of garbage nonsense. But yeah, no, I think it's impossible to clear your mind of preconceptions, biases. His next question was, do you recommend books if you end up really liking them? If so, what form does that recommendation take? I do try to recommend books. A lot of people in my day-to-day life are not really readers, so it's hard, or they don't read the same stuff as me. But I will be kind to comment on a lot of people's channels saying, oh, if you like this, you should read that. Yeah, I got my favorite books right here. You can kind of see some of them. I'm always recommending The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, one of my all-time favorite books. Bill's question. See, again, I don't know what Bill's channel's name is. What was the last book you recommended? Was there a specific reason for that book? Do people come to you regularly for book recommendations? I guess I can go back and look at my comments, but I don't want to do that. I think one of the last books I recommended, I think it was the Rivers of London series. I think I recommended that twice recently on people's channels. I've been like, oh, maybe you should check out this book. Yeah, because Rivers of London is great. And the specific reason for that book was, it was actually on Jim's channel here, book readings and stuff, that I recommended the Rivers of London series because he liked fantasy and police procedurals. And I was like, wow, let's take those two and combine them together and read Rivers of London. And then another person was listening to an audiobook narrated by Kobna Holdbrook-Smith, who does the Rivers of London book. And I said, well, if you like his voice, check out this book. Yeah. And so do people come to me regularly for book recommendations? As I said, a lot of people in my day-to-day life don't really read, but I have had, you know, people know that I'm a reader. And so I can recommend books if they do ask. Another question from this Bill. What books have you had the most success in recommending? Is there a way to keep track of that? Like, I don't know. Question 11, Mika Cumming. Do you take notes or annotate while you read? If so, what form does it take? Let me just explain it instead of saying yes or no, because it's a bit complicated. I just have a book here. I'm currently reading The Truth by Terry Pratchett, and I have these handy dandy bookmarks that have these little post-it flags attached to them. And what I do is when I come across an interesting passage, I flag it, and I don't stop. I just keep going. I just stick the flag down and keep reading. And then my intention is to go back and, you know, annotate and, you know, to make notes or you know, highlight something to that effect. It doesn't always happen. Usually it doesn't happen, if I'm going to be completely honest. With library books lately, I have been keeping track of quotes in this common book. So like, you know, I'll write the title and then all the flags that I made, so I can go back and, you know, look at some of the ideas, again, that were presented that I wanted to look at, or just some really pretty languages. Like, what is, well, that's all ideas. We can create each other new and old and borrowed memories. So yeah, that's how I annotate, I guess. James Holder, his question was, how many books are in your personal library and how do you organize your books? And I've done a bookshelf stats video now, and you don't have to watch that whole video. I'll tell you, I have, according to my spreadsheet, I have 1,152 books, but I have doubles of some books that I haven't included, and then some series, some comic series, essentially, that I counted as one book as opposed to like 9 books. Yeah. And I organize my books mostly by color. I have series up here, and Wheel of Time up here, and some favorites pulled out here. And then over on my last shelf, I have books that I categorize as pop culture. They're like a bunch of stuff about like Star Wars and Star Trek and Stargate and Supernatural and that kind of stuff. And then I have comics on that shelf and children's books on that shelf as well. They're not mixed in because they're not. That's the way I wanted to do it. Yeah, that's how I organize my books. Jim's question is, do you read books in languages other than your own? No. I can only read English. I can read basic French, like very, very basic, like probably a children's picture book. But I couldn't read a novel in French. Yeah, so the answer to that question is no. And my question, if you wanted to just use my first name's Courtney. I don't know how many times I said it or if I've ever said it. But yeah, my question is, do you read one book or multiple books at a time? And if you read multiple books, how? How do you do it? My answer is that I read multiple books at a time. I thought I could do one book at a time, but I can't. I think I'd get into a reading slump because sometimes I don't always feel like reading what I'm reading. Like sometimes I don't want to reach for a Discworld novel. That's blasphemy. But, you know, sometimes I want to read, you know, nonfiction. Sometimes I want to read a classic. And I just pick books that I know, like currently it's 1, 2, 3, yeah, I got 6 books on the go, but they're all different enough that I'm not going to get the plots and the characters mixed up at all. Hopefully not. I'm going to get a character from French literature mixed up with a... I wish my books were facing the other way so I could see what they were. I can't remember what I'm currently reading. You know, I'm gonna pit Madame Bovary and The Truth. I could actually see that happening though. Or I'm gonna pit, you know, a person from Capital, the nonfiction book on economics, you know, one of the CEOs of a multi-million-dollar company, and place them in, you know, 18th century France. I'm not gonna do that, but you know, I'm able to keep track of that. Yeah, and I just, you know, pick up whatever I fancy at the time. So yes. So this is, it's an open source tag, so do the tag and then add your next question. Yeah, so that's it. Consider yourself tagged. I never tag people in these things. And thank you for watching.